Hi, Jutta.
Hi, good morning. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can see you, I can hear you, and our participants are joining us for now. Yeah.
Okay, so I share the screen.
Okay. I wanna say something about this webinar today for our for your video permission.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone again. I hope you are doing well and all of you are in safe and health. Thank you for participating in this webinar. As you know, due to coronavirus problem, most of us are in quarantine, and as HRAs.com, we decided to organize some free webinars for you, for managers, for specialists in different areas, especially for HR managers, for HR specialists. We think this free times, this quarantine is also an opportunity for learning and development, for self-improvement. And today our webinar's topic is about presentation skills, about how to effectively and how to professional organize presentations, organize webinars professional. And our tutor, our trainer today is Jutta Portner from Germany. I know her from my management training in Germany. I was very impressed her training, and I think it will be great and useful webinar for you, for both of us. And as you know, I don't want to waste your time very much, but I want to thank you again for supporting us in organizing such seminars. For now, I turn off my microphone and ask everyone to turn off microphone also, and Jutta starts today's webinar. Thanks for attention.
Okay, so good morning everyone from my side. I'm Jutta, and I'd like to give you a presentation on how to keep your audience engaged during an online presentation. Yeah, let's get started with the very first question. So how are you? How are you in these crazy times, in these weird times of COVID-19 and Corona? I assume that as we do in Germany, many of you or most of you are in home office or working from home. And from one moment to the other, we were forced to switch from in-person meetings to virtual events. And that's a completely new situation. And one part in the situation is that we spend more time in front of the screen, which needs a lot of attention and is more exhausting than an in-person meeting. And therefore it's helpful to, and this is what I'd like to do with you, to share some tips and some tricks that we can apply in the presentation to keep the attention on a very high level. So there is a quote I'd like to start with, which is from a musician, Dorothy Sanoff, and she's saying, make sure you have finished speaking before your audience has finished listening. And I assume this is quite right, because so if we speak and no one is listening, we may ask yourself, what is the reason to do so? So the objective for today is to work with the challenge of online presentation and technology that requires some strategic but necessary adjustments in the design and delivery of your presentation. And the highest priority is understanding how to keep our audience engaged. I'd like to give you some information about myself. As Orkan mentioned before, we met 3 years ago at the International Manager Program. And yeah, I'm feel honored that I have the opportunity to give you a presentation. So I'm Jutta Portner, and I'm the business manager of a consultancy called C2B, the coaching company. I work for more than 20 years now as a business coach and management trainer. Our customers are in automotive industry like Daimler and Volkswagen. We give a lot of trainings also for chemical companies like BASF, like Wacker Chemicals and Clariant. So also for aviation industry, Airbus and the DLR. DLR is German Aerospace Center. Also for consuming industry like Mondelez and Kraft Foods and P&G, Procter & Gamble, and telecommunication like Telefonica and Cisco. So I'm specialized as a consultant in negotiation training, and also I'm the author of many books. So this is, and the last, what I last published was a digital training concept. So it was last year, and that forced me already last year to start to think about how to create presentations that people really can work with when they give the presentation online. So if I may ask you a question, so what are you doing right now? Of course, hopefully you're still listening because it's just the beginning of the presentation, but I'd like to share some facts with you and on the next slide, what people often do when they listen to online presentations, and maybe you find yourself...
Excuse me, Jutta, excuse me. We can't see the presentation. You can turn demonstrating of your screen, please.
Excuse me, I haven't got what you said.
We can't see slides.
You can't see the
slides. The screen is turned off.
You can't see the slides?
No.
Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Not at all, not from the beginning?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So yeah. So there on this slide you find information on what people or employees are doing during a conference call, and what you can see is that they do often 65% other work they have to do. People tend to send emails. They also eat or make food sometimes, or drink a coffee, or have a glass of water. Some people go to restrooms. They also do some texting, checking their social media, playing video games, and some people even do online shopping or exercising while they are listening to a presentation, or taking another phone call. So there are quite a lot of different activities people are doing during a call, during a presentation. So this is why I'd like to share some basic information before we go on specific tips for online presentations. Of course, it's quite helpful to be well prepared. Yeah, for being prepared. So I'd like to share another quote with you. So if you don't know what you want to achieve in your presentation, your audience never will. So what does it mean? That means that before we start to prepare our presentation, we have to be aware about the objective we want to achieve, and also, of course, about who's going to listen to us. There are 3 columns of a presentation. The first column is content. And content means that there is always a specific content from your business, from your industry, you want to share with your audience. So, and the content is about the fact, the information, and the objective you want to achieve. And also there is the target group. And depending on the target group, yeah, you are choosing specific kind of information you like to share with them. And also, I'd like to share this quote with you, which is saying, designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to whom it may concern. And no one ever would do this. So therefore, I think it's a nice part to understand how important it is to be aware of our target group, of the audience. So we talked about this first level, which is called content level. A second level in a presentation is the so-called continue level. And continue level means that in every presentation there is a certain process from the beginning to the end of the presentation, from the opening to the closure of the presentation. And this is about the agenda and the structure of your presentation. And with help of the structure, you will be able now to design the slides that follow the structure of the presentation. And also it's helpful that the audience will understand what you're talking about and where you are in your presentation at the moment. The continue level is also about the kind of media we are using. So is it just a free speech? Are you using PowerPoint slides? Is it an in-person presentation, or like nowadays an online presentation? Because depending on the kind of your presentation will depend the kind of media you will apply in the presentation. And the continue level is also about time management. So not because it's depending on the time you have available for share the content you want to share. And you have to get a feeling about how much time is appropriate for your presentation and how you are going to deal with time pressure. And so we talked about the content level, about the continue level, and there is a third level, so which is the contact level. And so we also related to the continue level is again this quote which is saying a watch is the most essential part of a lecture. When you're giving a presentation in PowerPoint, it's helpful also to have a from time to time have a look at the how much time is spent in your presentation. And then you will see how much time is still available to get a feeling how you can deal with this time pressure. So we talked about content level, continue level, and the third level is the contact level. And contact level is about the relationship. So if we have in-person presentations, it's much easier to be connected to the audience because we see how they react with their non-verbal communication on what we are sharing to them. And it's much more difficult in an online presentation to get a feedback on the reaction of the audience. And it's also especially in in-person presentations to deal with objections and questions, and sometimes hopefully it's rarely with some attacks. And also it's about dealing with your own emotions, because often people, if they are not so used in giving presentation, there is a kind of level of nervousness or stress or anxiety before they start the presentation. And if you have a look on these three levels of a presentation all together, they build like a lighthouse. No? The content level, the continue level, and the contact level. And how I introduced these three columns of a presentation to you, these kind of graphics are called infographics. That means that one picture after the other in the end build an overall picture. Not like we have it in this picture with the lighthouse. So the last slide is like kind of a summary of the slides before, when I talked about content, continue, and contact. So if we are aware about these three columns of a presentation, this is why it's recommended to take the bird's eye view from time to time to check the content, check the continue, and check the contact, if we are still on track. So now I'd like to share some tips with you on giving professional online presentations. And there are 10 of these tips altogether. So let's get started with the first one. The first one is, it is recommended to increase your visibility. So what does it mean? There are few things that are as compelling to other humans as the human face. And there is a classic study that revealed that infants stared twice as long at simplified human faces than shapes. So human faces has a higher attraction to other humans than shapes. And that indicates our fascination is hardwired. So add to that fact that 90% of how we communicate is through non-verbal cues like mimics, gestures, like facial expressions, and you start to get a picture of what disadvantage being simply a faceless voice to your audiences. So I think this is one of the, this is how we can understand how challenging it is to give a good online presentation. And there was a study many years ago where psychologists found out that only 7% of the effect we increase in others is set on the words we use. 38% on our voice and how we say it, like the sounds we make, the modulation of our voice, and 55% of effect we increase on others is with our nonverbals and body language. And this is what is missing mostly in online presentations. This is, again, what makes it so challenging. So obviously, the easiest and most effective way to increase our visibility is to use a webcam. And this is what we learned nowadays to do. So despite this quick fix, you find that surprisingly small percentage of business presenters take advantage of this. Still, only few people take advantage of this. And so if you're one of these camera-shy individuals, at least have a simple slide with your photo and credentials on it, which can show when you open and close the presentation as well as during question and answers. So the more you can make yourself visible and not just as a disembodied voice, the more engaged your audience will be. Here you see on the next slide a screenshot of people using webcams. And if we have a look on these different pictures, we already can see what we like and what is recommended and what we should not do. So on this gentleman here, he's very much on one corner of the screen. So always try to be centered when you are sitting in front of your webcam. Also, like this one, we see only part of his head and he's very far away from the screen. So come closer. It's recommended. Also, the lighting is important. Like it's always helpful if the light comes from the front, because if you do not have light, it's very difficult to see your mimics on the screen. So there is a small movie I like to share with you. Let me see, is it working? No, it's not working.
We don't see the movie.
You don't see the movie? No, yeah.
You can send it later for all participants.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I checked it beforehand, but now it's not working. Anyway, it was a photographer, and the photo. Oh yeah, we can try it again. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great.
Hi,
So
my name is Matthew Ralston. I'm a photographer and a director. I've been shooting beautiful people looking beautiful for a great many years. And so I'm here today with Lauren, giving you some tips on how to look good on webcam. So first things first, look good if you want to look good. Do your makeup, sit up straight, maybe smile, make an effort because you're on camera. Secondly, use some nice lighting. It can be very simple. I think just a simple desk lamp right over the lens of your device, centered to it, is going to be flattering for everybody. You could even put like a lamp with a lampshade right here. It would do the same thing. Or right here could be a window that would light you from the front.
So you never want to be backlit.
You don't want to be backlit. You don't want to be side lit. You don't want to be lit by the screen from underneath and look like a blue Frankenstein. You want to be lit from the front with soft light it shapes the face. It just gives you a little bit of a glow. But for that to work, you have to get rid of the other lighting. That's why we close the shades. And if there was fluorescent lighting in here, we would have turned it off. Next, you don't want the lens to look at you from underneath. It's better to look just slightly down on the person. So that means raise your device so that it's just about equal to your hairline. That's the best place for it. And then angle the screen or the device until you center yourself in the frame. Everything is centered. You're centered to the lens. The light is centered to the lens. And that symmetry is what makes the face look great. You don't want to sit too close. These devices have wide-angle lenses, and they're not adjustable. So if you get close to a wide-angle lens, it exaggerates things that are close to it, like your nose, your chin, and not terribly attractive.
You don't want to exaggerate any of those things.
One thing that's really helpful is keeping the background simple. It's just a clean, simple background. If there was a whole office back there, there'd be a lot of visual noise going on. Part of human nature is to look at ourselves. I guess we're just a little fascinated with ourselves. Don't look at yourself. You want to appear to be looking and engaging with the other person. That means you have to look at the lens. That's actually where the eye contact happens. So when you're talking to the other person, look there. That's your eye line, the lens. That's what will give you eye contact with them. You look pretty good there, I gotta say.
Okay, so that was the video I wanted to share with you, and I think there are some helpful tips on it. So really to check the light before we start to give a presentation, to understand that it's easier for the audience to see our mimics in the presentation. That always has a high effect. So the second tip, or the next tip, is it's about the voice we are using and the leverage of our voice in the presentation. So, of course, it's the same in an in-person presentation and a virtual presentation, that a monotone, unclear and hard to hear voice is magnified, the virtual world. So as your primary communication tool, you need to make sure you are in your best possible voice. To train the voice and check the voice, you can start by recording yourself and analyze your strengths and weaknesses. And then get to work. There is plenty of advices about how to improve various vocal issues. At the least, do some simple warm-ups before your presentation. And again, there is a nice quote of Adele, the British singer, and she's saying, "Your money is where your mouth is, so don't treat it lightly." So this is why we should really be aware of our voice. So what we can, some simple tips and ideas on to make sure that we can speak loudly, is to use a correct posture, an open posture, an upright posture. Also, always have a glass of water if you need to wet your voice. And concentrate on your breathing, because you need some air to speak. And also, as we talked about it before, it's helpful to record ourselves. And if you think it could be helpful, you also can book a vocal training to get some support from a vocal coach, if this would be helpful. So we talked about to increase our visibility. We talked about to leverage our voice. And the next tip is on to embrace the pause and use pauses during a presentation. So under the cover of invisibility, online audiences can be a very passive lot. And as a result, presenters tend to go into long monologues that only further discourage participation and encourage tune out of participants. So therefore, it's recommended to make friends with pause. So it can be a great tool for giving your audience a chance to process what you've said, like asking a question or make a comment in the chat box or question and answer box. And there are other strategic uses for pauses as well, like a pause before revealing something important can build anticipation. And while a pause kept at the end of the sentence can reinforce the key point, because you give the audience some time to follow what you were just saying. So our fourth tip is to start on time. This is what we did this morning. It worked very well. So between connectivity and log-on issues, arrival times are rarely consistent among audience members. So how do you avoid frustrating the people who are on time without penalizing the latecomers? And there is a small suggestion from my side: have two openings. So the first opening can be a soft opening, designing to get your audience engaged without revealing too much. And the second opening is like the hard opening, reserved for when everyone is in attendance. So this double opening is a little bit more work, but in the end it pays off big by keeping everyone happy. So the fifth tip is about interaction in an online presentation. And you see on this graphic that it's saying whiteboard sessions, polls or surveys, and also using questions. This is are some kind of interactions maybe you also apply in your online presentation. And in order to keep our audience, oh, sorry. I lost my... I think I have to restart my presentation.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Das ist auch hier auf dem Desktop. Warte mal, jetzt kommt die richtige Folie. I'm going to check the right slide. We may continue. Okay, so can you see my presentation again?
Yeah,
yeah, that's great. Okay, so we were talking about interaction, no? And in order to keep our audience engaged, we need to build up some interaction into our presentation. So with the average focus attention span of humans hovering around 10 minutes, and 10 minutes it's not too long. No? So now today we have 60 minutes. So which is much longer than the average attention span. Sporadic attempts at interaction are not going to cut it. So get your audience interacting before they hit the attention free fall by planning some form of interaction every like 5 to 10 minutes. And this can take many forms, like questions, like a poll, like whiteboarding sessions, and whatever you choose, just make sure you plan and prepare ahead of time so interaction doesn't fall by the wayside with everything else you have to keep track on. And again, I prepared a YouTube clip for you, one of the clips I really like a lot. It's about a conference call in real life.
Trip Crosby
has joined the meeting.
Beth?
Has joined the meeting.
Hello?
Tyler?
No, this is Beth from ICS.
Oh, hey, Beth. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah. Just making it, you know.
Tyler?
Has joined the meeting.
All right, well, this is Trip. Who's here? Tyler's here.
Beth's here.
Okay, the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the...
Yeah, I'll be able to do it in like 30 minutes. John?
Has joined the meeting.
Hi, John. Hi. I was just
trying to go over the purpose of today's meeting, which is to discuss the deliver.
Tyler?
Has joined the meeting.
Sorry, guys, I got cut off. Is Paul here? Send him an invite.
Put in your access code.
No, that's your PIN number.
It should be a 9-digit number.
Try pressing the pound key.
Paul.
Has joined the meeting.
Any questions before we move on?
Yes, this is Beth. What's our best plan of attack for the second quarter?
Question
We
actually.
should do.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I think
Well,
what we should do.
It
is
actually
really
depends on
diversify.
how you look at it, because the really
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think
Given
what we-
sales,
what we
we're at
really-
the
let me just say that.
Okay.
It was a great graph, John. Tyler?
Well, my main concern with the projections from year was that they're just insufficient. I mean, they're not even taking into account.
Did we lose Tyler again?
Hello?
John, are you guys taking distributions? John?
Oh, my bad. I was on mute. Let me start over.
So I prepared a presentation. I'm sharing it with all of you. You should be able to see it on your screen right now.
Got it.
I don't see a link anywhere.
It says I need to download a plugin.
We are all using Macs, I'm assuming.
How can you?
Financials are looking great. Paul, do you have any comments on staffing?
I was thinking about that because we get a few more contractor types in. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Rex, get down.
No, I feel like when I'm
To me, staffing is a huge.
What is that?
Is that me? I just want to go over a couple of details as we move into our next section here. We got 3 new departments coming on.
I'm breaking up a little bit, guys.
By the end of Q3.
Driving to
So
the dead
I need
spot.
everyone to give me detailed evaluations each
Sorry,
month
guys.
so that we know. That's it, guys. Beth, you'll send out a recap email that could have basically taken the place of this whole meeting, correct?
Yep, always do.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, Beth. Dave, you been here the whole time? Yeah. Huh. Well, thanks everyone once again. Oh, one more.
So that was it. Maybe some of the situations also happened to you. So I felt familiar with quite some of these ideas. And again, this shows us that it's really even more challenging to have an online presentation or meeting compared to an in-person meeting. So we talked about interaction. So I'd like to hear from you and like you to share some of your experiences with us. So what kind of interaction do you use in online presentations or online meetings, and which one is the most successful? So please write some of your tips in the chat box. Feel free to do so.
For example, me. Hello, Jutta.
Yeah.
I'm Rustam. So I am health and safety trainer. I use specially questions. For example, I observe the delegates. When I see that some of delegates are tired or sleeping, at that time I give some questions to interact that people to the course.
Mm-hmm. So you delegate the questions also, that you have some assistance on the one who's dealing with the questions, or are you doing it by yourself?
No, the questions by my side to interact these delegates to the course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you prepare the questions, or is it more that you develop them intuitively or spontaneously?
No, for example, let's say that I talk about one topic, for example, fire safety. That time I see that somebody is not listening to me. That time I giving the question from that topic, like that.
Oh yeah.
To check him and to warn him that I'm seeing him.
Ah, okay. You have everything under control and address the sleepy ones. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Any other interaction anyone else is using maybe, or some other ideas? So what I've seen the last days in different webinars also is that people are using the chat box a lot, and they delegate it and have like a facilitator of the questions in the chat box. And they were connected, and the facilitator like prepared all the questions that were asked to the ones who was presenting, no? And sorry. I have an assistant here. It's my son. Okay, thank you. Okay, so using questions, I guess, is one of the most used tool and most easiest tool we can use in our presentations as well. So if you're using polls or working with the breakout rooms, for example, you need to be, it even need to be more prepared and well prepared.
I think Aida Bayramova has some questions. Yes, Aida?
No, I just wanted to say something about how we delegate. So I'm a teacher, so I give lectures online. So we usually, with the students, I find out that they are more active when you give them not just a question, but you let them discuss among themselves. We started applying role plays in our courses. Like I give them lecture, I explain them techniques, and I explain them materials, and then they start role plays. Like as if one person is a customer, the other one is a seller, for example. So they discuss among themselves, and I'm just a like outsider, so, and I see they are more active and all are involved in that communication. And later, so after two person is in role playing the role, when they finish, all the students, they give some comments. So they find out like what was good, what was not good, and then we work on that.
And this is interesting to hear from my side, because I'm always also a trainer, and that you have got some experience with role plays already in your like online trainings, and that it's really it seemed to work very well. So that's very positive. And I also see on the chat box a comment which is saying to call the names of people. No? So I think because also if you address someone by name, people feel more personally also involved in the discussion or interaction. No? Okay, so let's get on. So that was the fifth recommendation we talked about, and the next one, the sixth one, is about to visually reinforce key points. You can get away with using fewer slides during an in-person presentation because it's easier to gauge your audience comprehension by the expression and the body language. And places where you would naturally stop often get overlooked as an online presenter, mistake audience silence for understanding. Yeah, so this is, I think, also very important to be aware of this. And we also have to make sure that we don't leave the audience in the dust of confusion. This is why it's also recommended to prepare summary slides, where they can catch the whole message again in few points, in key points. And for recap and take any questions. And the fourth recommendation is about speaking slower than we speak in in-person presentations, because it's more, people need more attention to listen to you, especially if you're presenting like in English or not in your mother tongue, and you're not aware about the English of the audience. Therefore, it's also always recommended to speak a little bit slower. So we come to the seventh recommendation, which is about creating word pictures. So in a virtual presentation, your words have to work even harder than in a live presentation. And therefore, it's recommended to think about creating pictures with your words, like metaphors or similes. And when you're describing something, you may use these metaphors, like yeah, you can say, no, we got cold feet, or no, baby, you're a firework, or you're the black sheep in the team. And if you are using these metaphors, people start to create the picture in their mind, and the information that is created by metaphors, it's easier for them to remember. Therefore, be specific, and also you should avoid broad generalities. And you also may use storytelling or interesting comparisons in your presentation, and to get a feeling on how we can use our language to make the presentation more interesting. You can listen to your favorite podcasters or YouTubers and understand how they use stories and descriptive words to draw you in. And again, I'd like to ask you for a small discussion with you to share your experience. Have you got some examples of word pictures you're using, or some storytelling you usually do, or some metaphors? You also, no, we can discuss it, or you can write it in the chat box again. Okay, storytelling, yeah, I see Arzu is saying also helps a lot to get the topic memorable. Any other ideas or recommendations you like to share with us?
Can I talk?
Yes. Aygun, yeah.
Yes, I can. Hi, everyone. Hi. In my lectures, I am a lecturer at university. In my lectures also is very useful using storytelling. My students like and remember the stories. It's helped me to remember them, my topics and other questions and etc. It helps me.
So you use storytelling a lot, or from time to time?
Not it. Approximately 2 or 3 minutes. Story, not long stories.
Yeah.
Short stories.
I think this is also very helpful. What you mentioned, that the stories has not to be too long, because otherwise, it starts to be boring again.
Yeah,
and it's also time consuming, because usually we have only little time in an online presentation.
Yes, of course.
And so I think it's, of course, it's always important that the story is related to the content we share. And I also agree to what you shared with us, that when we use storytelling, the more often we tell the same story, it gets better and better and better. You agree to this? And is there Ida, you wanted to share something? Yeah.
Like in my lectures, so I'm giving lectures in tourism, so like tourist guiding and design of excursions. And I'm personally tourist guide professional, like with license and about 10 years experience. So in storytelling part, I usually give some examples from my experience, because you know that in theory everything can look different, but when you really work, you face a lot of problems, or you face a lot of challenge. So when I explain the theory, for example, then I apply some information from the experience, and then I think it's more interesting for students. And also I use comparisons sometimes. For example, I ask a question, every student has their own answer for that, and then we discuss together which one is more effective.
Which one is
because
more effective?
Sometimes I find some answers that can be even more effective than my own, because young students, they have a lot of interesting ideas.
Yeah, okay. You also involve them, not to.
Yes, I can't. Like for me, like if you do not involve people in your trainings or in your presentations, I think it's difficult, because otherwise it will be only one person speaking, and then I think after 20 minutes they really get bored. So you need to involve them all the time.
So, and what I also realized when I'm using, like in my webinars, storytelling, that it's helpful to underline the story with the picture. No, that shows or is related to the story. No? So with the, that is also helpful. So thank you very much on sharing your tips on using metaphors or stories. And so the eighth tip I'd like to talk about with you is about to simplify your slides. So less is more. This is something overall helpful when we are going to create our slides. And so I give you some examples why it is so important to keep our slides simple. I firstly like to share some very bad slides with you. No? So hopefully your slides you don't use.
Jutta, excuse me, Jutta, for interrupting, but one of our participants, Arzu Mustafaev, won't share his opinion.
Yes, okay.
If we have time, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Arzu?
Yes, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, my point was about storytelling. I use it at my every presentation. So in every storytelling, first there should be a character, a hero. You first start with describing the character, and the second point is to have a situation. And then you depict the action of the character. Either it should be a success story, so the people know how the action should be and what is the consequences. Or there could be not success story, but the opposite. But at least the audience should get the lesson.
Yeah.
Every good presenter use their stories, and everyone should have their stock of stories, because this is the best part of the presentation, and everyone loves stories, and they memorized it for a long time than the presentation itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. So in a story, there is always a storyline. No? So like in the beginning, there is a challenge for the hero. No? So, and he has to overcome the challenge to be successful. Yeah. And this is receiving the success is what you can share with the audience, and they transfer it to their own life. And this is why it keeps more in memory. It's very memorable. Mm-hmm. So yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Pleasure.
Okay, thank you for sharing this experience and more details on how to create a good story. So now, right at the moment, we are talking about to keep slides simple, and I wanted to share some bad examples with you. For example, on this slide, you see there is too much information, and it's not rich on contrast because there's a dark background, and this pink color doesn't make it very easy to read. For example, also this one is a very bad one, which is very colorful and really difficult to read. And also that one is a very tough one with too much information on it, and the same is about this one, where you would need like 5 minutes to concentrate and get the key message of this slide. And so also, if there is too complex and too many information on it, you should use other media, but not an online presentation to share this. So if you have many of these very bad slides and one follows the other, in the end, your audience will fall asleep and no one will listen to you any longer. Therefore, your slides make your slides easy to look at them. So I would like to share a presentation of one of my customers with you, which is a state of the art, and it's a customer, it's called Voigt. It's a mechanical engineering company, and this is their online presentation, their business presentation. So this is the first slide, the opening slide, where it's only the company's name is the logo, and it's only the title is Void at a glance, so it's not saying anything else. And on the second slide, there is a lot of information about the companies, like Void in figures. And so it's not like we see it often, like with bullet points one after the other, but they found a more creative way to share their numbers. Then they talk on the next slide about their claim. We are setting standards in our market, and if there is a second click, they share some additional information in a light gray. No? So that you always would need 2 clicks. On the following slides, they have 5 business units. They introduce their business units. So the first one is energy. And here you see they have a slide filling picture and only 1 word. And this is what we call 1-word slides. And again, they work with this explaining character with text fields, transparent text fields, where they explain the business unit. They do it the same way with the other business units they have, like oil and gas, and second click, again, this text field and the explaining sentence. Next one is paper, and then they have raw materials, and last but not least, they have transport and automotive. And you can see that looking at these pictures is they're aesthetic. No? So it's fun to look at these pictures. So try to make the pictures on your slides as big as possible, and ideally work with text fields and not with small pictures. And so in this presentation, company presentation of this customer Void, then there follow a lot of information we know from basic or regular business presentation, like they introduced the board of management, they introduced the 4 divisions, they talk about their long-term partnerships they have, about the dynamic growth and solid profit over decades, and where they are located in different countries all over the world. And they closed the presentation with their leitmotif, and again they use, for describing the leitmotif in different slides, they use these big pictures again. No? And again, they have pictures they use. And yeah, this is the last slide, again, the logo of the company. And I also took a screenshot of these, I don't know, about around 20 slides of their presentation. And you see overall that they start with big pictures. In between, they have all the facts they want to share. And again, they close the presentation with pictures. So this is what is recommended, what we can do to make it more easy for the eye to follow, to plan your presentations by using more pictures than you used maybe beforehand. Okay, I'd like to get in a discussion with you again. And have you got any questions or any other tips or ideas on how to simplify your slides? What are you doing at the moment to make your slides easy for the eye? Just share some ideas, please, with us. So if there are no questions at the moment, I'd like to get to the last. Yeah, sorry?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is it eligible to use animation on the slide?
Yes, you can, but do it rarely, because it has a strong effect if you use the animation, because people are not especially looking what you want to highlight.
I have heard that using animation draw the attention of people. That's why it's not eligible to use it on our slide. That's why I wanted to ask you that. What do you think about it?
So if there is too much information, I think people cannot concentrate on what you want to share. And your question, right, brings us to the next tip that is recommended, which is saying to use purposeful movement. Like you see this small arrow I implemented on this slide. It's a GIF, and it's very easy to implement.
Yes.
For example, in PowerPoint slides. So if you do it from time to time, you really can highlight what is important, what you like to focus on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Also, we have some questions from participants, dear Jutta, in chat box.
Yeah. What I can see, I used some attractive pictures and small notes. Then I speak about this picture. Yeah. For me, Mehi was this idea. I think what I like is to show pictures, make a pause, and only then to talk about what you're sharing and what you're showing. Mm-hmm. Okay, tables that are logically linked. Ida is sharing this, and also short video clips. Mm-hmm. So like in this presentation also shared with you these two YouTube clips. Maybe trailer from movie, which is related with topic. Yeah, that's a very good idea, because people identify themselves also with actors. Okay. So if you are using YouTube clips, there is always this YouTube converter, of course, and when I'm using videos from YouTube in my presentations, I also try to make them not too long. So today, these ones were 2.5 and 3 minutes. And from my experience, this is like a maximum of time a presentation should last. So would it be okay if we continue, if we go on? Great. So I just talked to you about these GIFs we can use to highlight what is important. So purposefully to use movement, and this is because of our brain. There's an area which is called the limbic system, and it's highly sensitive to movement. So this is why we should use it from time to time. So this was probably meant to keep us safe from dinosaurs, and the question is, what does it mean today for us as presenters? So that any on-screen movement will draw the viewer's eye, and if we are aware of this, this has pluses and minuses. So an advantage of this is this purposeful movement we can use to change slides or using our web tools to guide the audience eyes. So you can also use like the mouse if you like to highlight something. And the negative side is if it's random or chaotic movement, jerky animations, erasing mouse, or rapid transition work against you. So we have to be aware about that. So now we are coming to the last tip for the presentation. It's about end the party on time. And if I check the time, it's saying 12 o'clock. So we are right at the end of the presentation. And so while this applies to in-person presentations as well, ending on time also plays even a greater importance in a web presentation where it's easy for people to drop off or tune out, and make it very clear upfront that you plan to stop us at a specific time. So when that designed time arrives, deliver your closing and take any additional questions offline or schedule another call. Because people often have follow-up meetings after your presentation, and keep your virtual audience engaged is no small task. So understanding where and how you're at risk for tune out, and make some adjustments in your presentation that will help you achieve your goal and keep you from talking to yourself. So the summary of these 10 tips, again, we talked about increasing our visibility by using the webcam in a way that it's easy for people to see us in a good lighting. Also, we talked about the leverage of our voice, that we should use pauses, that we should start on time, and the 10th one, end the party on time. We talked about interaction, like using questions or polls or discussions with the audience. We talked about how to reinforce key points with action, and we talked about metaphors and applying similes, for example, and storytelling, about the importance to how to simplify our slides, and the purposeful movement. So thank you very much. Now we are at the end of the presentation. Are there any other questions at the moment from your side?
Does anyone have questions? Any questions, maybe?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I hope you can take some ideas out of this 1-hour webinar. And so there is my contact data. So whenever you have any questions, feel free to get in contact with me. Orhan, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for this interesting presentation. It was great time management of presentation. Also, I hope we will see you here in Azerbaijan after this coronavirus problem. I think it would be great to see you in Baku within the framework of cooperation with our companies. And also, I want to thank everyone for actively participating in this webinar. I hope it was very interesting and helpful for you. And also want to remind that we have other pre-webinar tomorrow. As you know, as you see from announcements, the topic is crisis management, very actual topic nowadays. And trainer will be Frank Benson, a great German trainer. Jutta knows him, and registration will be ended in an hour. That's why if you want to participate in that webinar, you must try out. Thanks for attention. Thanks for presentation, Jutta. If anyone has questions, you may ask. If we have questions, or
I see two questions. I think it was about getting the presentation material. So I will send you a summary of the presentation, some light version. I send it to you, I think, Orkan, and you can.
Also, we will share video recording of this webinar in our social page.
Okay, great. So stay happy and healthy, everyone in Azerbaijan, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your.
Dostlar, sonda suallar gördüm oradaki sabahki webinara ne başlamak olar. Sayfamızda sabahki webinarla da bağlı materialleri.
Sesim kırık geldi.
Aha, sesim olabilir, internetten bağlı problem var. Hal-hazırda düzeldi sesimde problem.
Bəli.
Sabahki webinarla bağlı bizim sosial şəbəkə səhifələrində eyni zamanda saytımızda məlumatlar yerləşdirilmişdir. Qeydiyyat üçün son bir saatınız var. Əgər kimlərsə qoşulmaq istəyirsə, qeydiyyatdan keçərək sabahki webinara qatıla bilər. O da həmçinin ödənişsiz webinar olacaq və hal-hazırda ən aktual məsələlərdən biri olan crisis management haqqında olacaq. Yəni şirkətlər, menecerlər bu koronavirus dönəmində hansı addımlar atmalılar, necə hərəkət etməlidirlər, HR'ın rolu burada nədən ibarətdir və s. Ümid edirəm, bugünkü webinar hər birinizə maraqlı oldu, nəsə fayda qatdınız və bu şənbə gününü bizimlə birgə keçirdiyinizə görə hər birinizə təşəkkür edirəm. Sabahki webinarda görüşənək. Sağ olun.